What if the heroes we trust most, those sworn to protect, were hiding a deadly secret? Tonight, we uncover real-life cases where lawmen didn't stop the killers because they were the killers. These aren't crime show scripts. They're chilling truths that shattered families, exposed systemic failures, and prove that the badge can sometimes hide the darkest intentions. These aren't plots from a crime show. They're real-life horror stories. Welcome to Crime Cipher, the true crime channel where justice gets personal and deception gets exposed. If you crave cases that dig deeper than the headlines, you're in the right place. In this episode of Crime Cipher, we peel back the polished image of law enforcement to reveal the darkness lurking behind the badge. You'll meet officers who didn't just betray their oath. They became nightmares to their communities. From Gerard Schaefer, the charming Florida deputy who may have murdered over 30 women, to the self-proclaimed Dexter killer who mimicked TV fiction with real blood, these are the men who crossed the thin blue line permanently. If you think truth is stranger and scarier than fiction, hit that like button now. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because Crime Cipher brings you the darkest stories that slipped through the cracks. The betrayal behind the badge, Gerard John Schaefer. In the early 1970s, Florida was already a haven for runaways and teens chasing coastal freedom. But few knew that danger lurked in the form of a smiling sheriff's deputy. Gerard John Schaefer started his career as a lawman, upholding order. But it didn't take long for cracks to show. Victims began disappearing. Teen girls, often hitchhiking or walking alone, would vanish without a trace. Behind closed doors, Schaefer was keeping trophies, diaries filled with chilling fantasies, souvenirs from victims, and handwritten accounts of torture and execution. When police finally arrested him, what they uncovered shocked even seasoned detectives. Schaefer wasn't just a murderer. He was methodical, depraved, and disturbingly proud of his work. Though convicted of 2 murders, he suspected in at least 26 others. His prison death ended his spree, but the nightmares he created still haunt families. The Dexter delusion, Mark Twitchell. In Canada, the line between fiction and reality was gruesomely crossed by Mark Twitchell, an aspiring filmmaker obsessed with the TV series Dexter. Twitchell didn't just admire the fictional vigilante, he tried to become him. He lured a man named Johnny Altinger to his garage under the pretense of a dating meetup. But what awaited Johnny wasn't a date. It was a plastic-lined kill room. Twitchell stabbed him, dismembered his body, and dumped the remains, believing he could get away with it just like his on-screen idol. But evidence began to mount. A deleted Word document recovered by investigators, chillingly titled SKConfessions, revealed Twitchell's real-time thoughts as he executed his plan. Police also found props, weapons, and notes from his fake movie set, revealing a disturbing blend of fantasy and murder. In 2011, Twitchell was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. The Thomas Quick scandal. Stuart Bergwall, a former psychiatric patient in Sweden, confessed to more than 30 brutal murders across Scandinavia. He described them in graphic detail, leading police to believe he was the region's most prolific serial killer. But there was a catch. None of the evidence added up. No DNA, no witnesses, no physical proof. Eventually, it came to light that Bergwall, under the alias Thomas Quick, had been manipulated through therapy, sedatives, and suggestion to fabricate murders that never happened. Over time, every single confession unraveled. Swedish courts overturned all 8 of his murder convictions, leaving behind one of the most staggering examples of wrongful imprisonment and state failure in modern history. His story remains a dark cautionary tale. How even the justice system can hallucinate guilt when it wants to see a monster. Each of these cases isn't just a shocking headline. They're lessons in how trust can be manipulated, systems can be corrupted, and evil often wears a smile. Gerard Schaefer exploited procedural gaps to continue killing under the color of law. Mark Twitchell blurred the line between reality and scripted murder, embodying a fictional killer while the real world looked the other way. And Thomas Quick's confessions, swallowed whole by a desperate justice system, became a terrifying warning. What if the system wants to believe the monster exists so badly, it fabricates one? When lawmen cross the line, a pattern emerges. What if Schaefer, Twitchell, and Bergwall have in common besides blood on their hands, or the illusion of it? All three cases expose how people in positions of perceived authority, whether a deputy, a filmmaker imitating justice, or a psychiatric patient turned media darling, can weaponize trust. These men weren't random criminals, they were insiders. People who studied how the system worked so they could exploit it. Their stories reveal common threads: psychological instability, manipulation of law enforcement structures, and a thirst for power over others. In many ways, their crimes were less about violence and more about control of their victims, of a narrative, and even of public fear, the systems that failed and exposed them. Gerard Schaefer's early warnings were ignored. He was once fired for misconduct before being hired by another department. Twitchell's obsession with violent media wasn't seen as a red flag until it was too late. Bergwall's fabricated confessions were taken at face value, aided by a system hungry for closure. These cases illustrate how procedural cracks, poor oversight, and blind belief in authority figures allowed horrors to unfold. But they also show how technology, like DNA databases, cyberforensics, and case reopenings, can help pull truth from shadows. Justice, delayed or denied, still has a fighting chance when systems evolve and the public remains vigilant. When the badge becomes a mask, behind every uniform is a person, but sometimes what lies beneath is darker than we can imagine. The chilling transformation from protector to predator is not just a betrayal of public trust. It's a total collapse of the system we rely on to keep us safe. These men didn't just kill. They hid behind rules, wore masks of authority, and used society's blind faith as a shield. Their stories aren't just about crime. They're about how darkness can hide in plain sight. And that's exactly why we need to keep asking the hard questions and refusing to look away. The illusion of control, how power corrupts. Many of these killer cops and impersonators weren't just committing crimes. They were playing God. Their uniforms, badges, and positions of authority became twisted symbols of control. Gerard Schaefer, for instance, used his patrol car as bait, pulling over young girls under the guise of protecting them, only to lead them in a forest where he tied them to trees and tortured them. For Mark Twitchell, it was the illusion of being in total command, directing his own deadly movie and scripting out a false reality where he became both hero and villain. These men weren't just breaking laws. They were rewriting the moral code in their own image. The hidden killer's still among us. What's truly chilling is how many of these predators operated unnoticed for years, even decades. They blended in, praised by neighbors, honored by colleagues, trusted by citizens. In some cases, warning signs were dismissed as eccentric behavior or stress from the job. This systemic failure raises a terrifying question. How many others are out there, wearing the badge, saluting the flag, but harboring monsters inside? The danger isn't just who gets caught, it's who still hasn't. The scariest monsters aren't the ones hiding in the shadows. They're the ones in uniform, smiling, shaking hands, and swearing oaths. And if you want more terrifying truths, don't miss our next video, The Cult That Worshipped a Serial Killer. Or catch our YouTube short series where we expose 60-second breakdowns of the worst betrayals in law enforcement history. Each short leaves a trail of questions begging for answers. If you believe the scariest stories aren't fiction, but the ones we ignore, then Crime Cipher is your new home. Tap that like button if this story made you question the system. Subscribe now and join a growing community determined to decode lies, dissect truth, and bring light to justice's darkest failures. Speech Balloon, let us know in the comments. Which betrayal shocked you the most? Was it Schaefer, the serial-killing deputy? Twitchell, the Dexter delusionist? Or Quick, the man who faked being a monster so well the courts believed him? We read every theory, every reaction, and we feature the most insightful ones in our next deep dive.